You're probably here because the Subrosa Salvador was on the free bike recommendation that I did for you. If that's the case, you need to watch this whole video. I'm going to go super in depth about it, explain the geometries, the qualities, the specs, everything. We're going to go super in depth, and then you can make your final decision if this is the right bike for you. If you're not from the free bike recommendation, consider clicking here and requesting one from me. I'll do a recommendation. It takes me about a day, but I'll recommend 3 bikes that I think are perfect for you. Will the Salvador be on there? I don't know. It's hard to say. It depends on a lot of different things. So let's talk about the Subrosa Salvador. The Subrosa Salvador is one of the more exciting bikes in Subrosa's lineup because they add chromoly into the frame. It's still not quite a mid-level bike, but all things considered, it's decent quality. But the $500 price tag kind of drives me crazy. One of the things that I do love about this bike is the options. You've got the Subrosa Salvador XL, the Free Coaster, the Park. All of those different options will be covered more in depth in a different video. This is going to be just about the Salvador and the Salvador XL, not the Salvador Park and not the Salvador Free Coaster. Those have different scores in the street, in the park, and in the dirt. So we're gonna talk about those. Like there's separate videos on that. Okay, just search for it, or I'll probably link it somewhere. I don't know. But the Subrosa Salvador is a solid bike. A little bit overpriced, all right? Not full chromoly. These are some of the most common questions that I get about this bike. How much does it weigh? The Subrosa Salvador is going to weigh 26 pounds even. It's going to cost you $499, putting it in the same price range as the Kink Whip. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. A lot of people ask, can I upgrade this bike? And the cool thing is everything on this bike is fully customizable, fully upgradable as long as it's the correct size. Like the cranks are going to be 19 millimeters, so you can't just get 22 millimeter cranks and replace it without changing the bottom bracket. But that's normal things, right? It's not like if you get a Walmart bike, the one-piece cranks are going to be a headache, the bottom bracket's going to be a headache, and it's just terrible. The Subrosa Salvador is not like that. Everything's really easy to replace and really easy to upgrade. Does it come with pegs and hub guards? So sadly, the Salvador does not come with any pegs or any hub guards. You can upgrade them if you want with universal hub guards and, just standard pegs, but they don't come in the box. What kind of options does it come with? Well, you're going to need to choose between a 20.5 or a 21-inch top tube. The 21 is the XL version. I'm not going to make a separate video on that, but so choose between the 20.5 normal version or the 21-inch XL version. And within that, you get 2 different color options for each. So in the 20.5, choose between black and matte trans red. And in the 21, choose between black and matte raw. Well, it's going to come with a sealed Rant Party On cassette that's 9-tooth. It has a 25-tooth sprocket, making it a 25/9 gearing system. So earlier I mentioned the 20.5 version or the XL 21-inch version. How do you know which one's right? We're going to talk about the sizing, and I'll help you figure out which size is best for you, if any of them. So if you're between 5'6" and 5'9", you're going to want to go with the 20.5 option. If you have a BBB, this 20.5 option is good if you're 5'3" to 5'6". So with big bike background, get the bike if you're between 5'3" and 5'6". With virtually no experience riding a bike, anything like that, you're going to want to get the 20.5 if you're between 5'6" and 5'9". Now for the 21-inch option, you want to be over 6 foot. 6 foot and up, you can get the 21-inch. If you have a big bike background, this bike will be a good fit if you're over 5'9". So you could be all the way down to 5'9" and get the 21-inch if you have experience riding bigger bikes. And then there's 4 other geometries on this bike. These aren't going to be as impactful as the top tube size. The top tube size is going to be the most important thing that you consider when you're thinking about the sizes of the bike. These other geometries will just kind of affect the style of the bike and how it handles and how it feels. So the head tube angle is 75 degrees, steep head tube angle is 76, a mellow head tube angle is like 74, 74 and a half. And so this is right in the middle. The standover height is going to be 9 inches. And again, this is right in the middle. Now the chainstay length is 13.2 inches. And this might be kind of long for somebody who's 5'3" to 5'6". So if you have that big bike background and you go with the 20.5 version, it's still going to have a 13.2 inch chainstay, which to me, for someone that small, is going to be kind of long if you're a responsive technical rider. Now, if you have no idea what kind of style you like to do, then it doesn't matter. You're going to ride this bike. It's going to be a little bit harder to pull up and initiate manuals, and the back end's not going to feel super responsive, which is fine if you don't have anything anything to reference it to. But just keep that in mind. If you get this bike, you're struggling with manuals, that could be why, especially if you're a shorter person. But, you know, for someone 5'6" to 5'9" and up, this is kind of a standard size chainstay. Now, again, though, if you're on the opposite end of it, if you're way over 6 foot, this might feel a little bit small for you. So just a heads up. The last thing is the bottom bracket height, which is 11.6. This is pretty much right in the middle of what most bottom bracket heights are. It's not going to make the bike feel extra responsive. It's not going to make the bike feel extra stable. It's right there in the middle, so you don't need to worry about it too much. Overall, the bike, the geometry on all of Subrosa's line, I'll explain it for each bike, but it's about the same. The Salvador, the Tyro, the Altus, like for the most part, the frame geometries are about the same. The only thing that really changes is the top tube and the standover height a teeny tiny bit from some of the shorter frames to these frames, but that's about it, okay? Now there's other geometries on the parts package that we need to talk about and look at. These are gonna be just like the frame geometries. They have a minuscule effect on your riding, and you'll notice it in your style a little bit. So the fork offset is 30 millimeters. This is a little bit on the longer end. I'd say 26 is right in the middle when you consider there's a 13 millimeters the shortest and 32 millimeters kind of the longest that you can get in freestyle. That makes 26 about the middle. So 30 is going to be kind of long, okay? This is good for newer riders because you don't want something really responsive. It's going to feel uncontrollable and you might get hurt. So riding a 30 millimeter fork offset, 32 millimeter fork offset is good because it feels comfortable. You're not going to loop out real quick, or you're not going to snap the steering in the bowl and flip over or anything like that. Like 30 millimeter is good. Don't worry about it. The bars come in 9 inches. It's 9 inches whether you get the 20.5 inch option or the 21 inch option. On a 21 inch option, generally, like I said, it's for people over 6 foot. You're probably going to want some taller bars. So consider upgrading the bars later on. I only ride 9 1/4 and I'm 6'4", but the industry average, you'll have to find what works good for you. But generally, most people over 6 foot are riding around 10 inch bars at the minimum. So just consider that, think about it. The crank arm length is 170 millimeters, which is, to me, it's a little bit short, especially for a taller rider. Now, somebody 5'3", 5'6", almost 5'9", this is good. This is a good average, but for a taller guy over 6 foot, these crank arms are pretty short. You can upgrade them to 175 or 180 if you're feeling extra crazy, but the 170 might feel weird for a taller rider. I'm 99% sure that the stem is 50 millimeters in reach. The longer a stem is, the farther away your handlebars are. It's going to make your steering more stable. It's going to make bar spins a little bit harder, but the stability that comes with the steering is what you want out of a stem, especially if you're just getting into the sport. You're not going to learn bar spins right away, so it's better to have a more controlled and a more stable feeling on the bars and on the steering. The last thing is the gear ratio, which is 25/9, like I already mentioned. So now we got the geometry, right? You know, the height that this bike is good for, you know, the geometries of everything else, kind of how it's going to affect your riding. Next, we need to talk about quality, which is a little bit more exciting than the quality of the other bikes in Subrosa's line, just because they add chromoly into the frame. So the frame is technically tri-moly. When you see tri-moly, it's not full chromoly, right? It's a fancy word for saying that generally the top tube, the down tube, and the head tube are going to be full chromoly, while the back end of the frame is high tensile steel. For a lightweight rider, this isn't a big deal. But for someone like me, for example, I weighed over 180 pounds when I was riding when I was younger and had tri-moly frames. And I'd bend that back end. I was learning 360s or 180s, and that back end over time just tweaked over like that because it's not full chromoly. And when you weld high tensile steel to chromoly, where the frame kind of meets up there at the wishbone, you're sacrificing the integrity of the bike overall. I mean, I guess it's good to put chromoly in the front end because for the most part, the top tube or the down tube can bend if it's high tensile steel, and chromoly, it'll just snap at the welds. But still, anyway, that's what the high tensile steel, that's what the chromoly does. This frame is not fully chromoly, the back end's high tensile steel. So if you weigh over 150 pounds, I would say be careful with it and just keep an eye on that back end, make sure it's not shifting. Now, if it does shift, It's going to feel weird to ride, but it's not the end of the world. Like, it usually shifts and it's kind of funky. Like, your tire is going to be going in a weird direction, but you'll get used to it. I just say keep an eye on it because you don't want your frame to be all tweaked out like that. You know, you don't want that. The forks are high tensile steel with a chromoly steer tube, just like the Subrosa Tyro. The legs are high tensile steel, which is the most important part of the forks, in my opinion. This has a 2-piece steer tube. It's just not great, right? Especially on a $500 bike. I don't think this is anything to admire. Chromoly frame and high tensile steel legs. When you do jumps, when you do gaps, when you do anything decently big, you're putting pressure on your wheels, okay? And when your wheels come down, they naturally want to flex out like that. And so when your forks are not super strong, they don't rebound back. That flex just kind of keeps flexing, and eventually your forks are raked out like a Harley Davidson. It's not very fun. So again, keep an eye on the back end of the frame if you're over 150 pounds. Keep an eye on the forks if you're over 150 pounds. The bars are full chromoly 2-piece bars. So this is cool. We get an upgrade on the bars from the other bikes. Bars come full chromoly. This is great. You don't have to worry about your bars bending, which on high tensile steel bars, the arms just go whoop and bend down. It's ridiculous. The cranks are 8-spline 3-piece chromoly cranks. These are good, but they're going to be very heavy. So if you have a bunch of extra money, you want to save some weight on the bike, upgrade something like the Rant Bangin', Rant Bangin' 48, or something better quality like the Odyssey Caliber or the Profile crank, something like that. If you're planning to upgrade it, you won't need to for a while, but as you start to progress, consider upgrading the cranks. You're going to save some weight. The rims are Rant Squad alloy single wall rims. So overall, we have a Chromoly frame. We have high tensile steel forks with a chromoly steer tube. We have full chromoly bars, full chromoly cranks, and then single wall rims. This is kind of the core component of the frame, and these are the most expensive parts to upgrade. So what I always recommend for you guys is find a bike that has the strongest core components that you can get: the strongest frame, the strongest forks, the strongest bars, cranks, and wheels, because these are going to be really expensive to upgrade overall. It's cool to come with a lot of aftermarket parts like pedals, stem, chain, seat, all tires, all that stuff, but they're not that expensive to replace. So I would rather you guys get a bike that has good, strong core components and pay to replace the parts package that comes with it versus getting a bike with not very good core components and then paying to replace the core components and having good part package. Does that make any sense? Anyway, that's the main components. Okay, so some of the part package highlights, we have quite a bit on here. The Rant Trail plastic pedals are Rant aftermarket pedals. The Subrosa pedal steel sprocket. It's a lower quality version. You know, you want alloy sprockets are a lot better, lighter, but steel sprocket's going to be a little bit heavy. Anyway, it's still an aftermarket sprocket. It's got a sealed headset, bottom bracket, and hubs, and then Subrosa sawtooth tires. These are the low PSI version of the Subrosa sawtooth tires, so they're 60 PSI max. I don't know any new riders who ride over 60 PSI, but once you get back into it or get a little more experienced, you're going to want tires with a higher PSI so you can pump them up and have minimal rolling resistance. These are going to squish down and they're going to feel really sluggish and slow when you're cruising around the skate park or on the street spots. But they're technically aftermarket, even though they're the low PSI. The LOWLIGHTS of this is the 410 chain. It's a weaker version of the chain. You want a half link or you want a 510 chain, in my opinion, at minimum, because you don't want to be pedaling around. You don't want your chain to snap, hit your knee on the stem, flip over. You're going to have a bad time. So especially if you're a lighter rider, you're not going to put very much pressure on the chain, but over 150 pounds, same thing. Guys over 6 foot who weigh quite a bit, keep an eye on this chain or replace it right away. It'll cost you $30 to get a really good chain on there. Keep an eye on it. It's low quality. Okay, so now we know all the quality, and let's kind of talk about the quality and the weight limit. This is a weight limit that I developed myself. This is not from Subrosa. This is just from me based on the quality of the bike, because I weighed a lot. I mean, not a lot, like 180 pounds. I was 6 foot when I was, 14, 15, I feel like. But I broke a lot of bikes because of that, because I had no idea what this different quality meant. Neither did my parents. And so anyway, the Subrosa Salvador scores a 4.2 in quality. 4.2 out of 10. The kink whip scores a 7 just for reference. Everything makes up this 4.2 quality score. And so because of this quality score, I wouldn't recommend it for anyone over 160 pounds. If you're under 160 pounds, this is a fine bike for you. You're not going to be bothered by the Chromoly frame, by the high tensile steel fork legs. You're going to be chilling. But if you're over 160 pounds, you got to pay special attention to the quality of this bike, and it's going to wear out a lot faster. It's not going to last you as long. So that's why I put that weight limit on there. The XL version, for the most part, I feel like people over 6 foot are going to weigh more in general. Like they're just taller people, bones weigh a lot. I don't know. You're probably going to be over this 160 or right around there. And so I would stay away from this XL version unless it's the only thing you can afford. But again, there's better options for $500. So 160 pounds. If you're under 160, I take back all the bad things I said about this bike. It doesn't apply to you. If you're over 160 pounds, be weary about it. All right. So if you're still watching this video, you're probably like, hey, you know, this might be a good bike for me. Well, now we got to talk about the disciplines. There's street, there's park, there's dirt. There's a bunch of different things that people ride their bikes on. Newer riders tend to ride a little bit of everything, but maybe you have it in your head that you're going to be a park rider or you're going to be a street rider. So let's talk about what this bike is designed for. The algorithm in the Dougsterbob app came up with these scores based on a bunch of different things. So the Subrosa Salvador is mostly designed for dirt riding. This is going to be because of the bigger geometry and just some of the parts package items. It scored a 2.2 in street, a 2.56 in park, and a 4.1 in dirt. It scores highest in dirt. You can upgrade it. You can add changes. Like I said, this bike's fully customizable. So if street is your thing, you probably want to get some pegs, some hub guards, some better street tires. If park's your thing, you're probably going to want to get a gyro and lighter parts for it so that it's better, more responsive, things like that. You can upgrade it, but as it comes right out of the box, it scores a 4.1 in dirt, and it's going to be best for riding dirt jumps or pump tracks. Now, if I went back in time and I bought this bike and I said, well, what should I upgrade? I would upgrade the wheels first. Single wall wheels, you can save a lot of weight by upgrading the wheels. You can maybe get a free coaster if that's something that you want, but upgrade the wheels first. It's going to be expensive, but you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck out of upgrading the wheels. The next thing, the sprocket. Get a good alloy sprocket. It's going to save you quite a bit of weight, and it's going to be a lot stronger. And then the forks. I don't like the high tensile steel legs on the forks. Since the bars are full chromoly, I think the forks would be the next best upgrade. You're going to have a lot of benefits with upgraded forks. So overall, I do like the Subrosa Salvador. If you're under 150 pounds, it's going to be a fine bike for you. But there are a ton of other bikes that come in 21 inch and 21 inch or 20.5 inch options. There are lots of different options, and some of them are much better value than this bike. There are quite a few that are better value. $500 for a 4.2 quality score is just not very good. And someone over 160 pounds should really just stay away from this bike. Find something better in a 21 inch top tube, up your budget, or you don't even need to up your budget for some of these bikes you can find at the same price tag with almost double the quality score. You got to check out the Dougsterbob app to find those bikes because you just sort it by quality. It's so simple. Anyway, not a bad bike for someone smaller, but the value on this bike really is off. It gets a little more exciting when we talk about the park version or the free coaster version because they're designed specifically for a certain type of rider, where this one's just a generic bike designed for everyone within those size ranges, and I don't think it hits the mark on quality. So that's kind of my thought on it. If you still really want this bike, click the link up here or in the description. It's going to take you to the bike shop that has this bike for the best price. It's always updated, and there's a lot of people who are charging way too much for bikes right now, and I don't want you guys to get ripped off. So check that and see where it takes you. Find it for the best price if you want it, but I think your best option would be to fill out a free bike recommendation and let me recommend 3 bikes that are perfect for you based on your budget, your height, your skill level, all of that. I'll take the guesswork out of the BMX buying process. I'll make your life a lot easier. That's up here on the screen. And go into the comments. Let me know what review I should do next. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for watching.